BidBuy version upgrade go live Tuesday. So, um, we talked about before last week, we went live over the weekend. So the BidBuy team was hard at work over the weekend to get the upgrade up and running. So Monday morning when you came in to work and opened up BidBuy, voila, you had the new version of BidBuy. So we're going to talk about, it's going to be a little bit heavy on the upgrade today, answer any questions you may have, as well as just talk about some of the new little things that have popped up for you. We also have a new type code to publish emergency final costs. New form alert, beep, beep, beep. We have a sole source hearing details form that is slightly changed. It's going to make it a little bit easier to fill some of the PDFs. A reminder for our BidBuy monthly training, Thursday, March 19th. And then our FAQ segment, version 15 upgrade issues, and then our fun fact of the day. Okay, so the meat and potatoes of this call is going to be the BidBuy version. So BidBuy version 15 is live, but there are some issues that you may be running into. For instance, if it's not working the way that you are expecting it to, make sure that you're following these steps. So in order to see a successful upgrade, you need to clear browsing history, cookies, and cache in Google Chrome. So we're always told that Google Chrome is the proper browser to use. It has, if you use Internet Explorer, sometimes you'll have some weird little bugs in it and that sort of thing. So we always say use Google Chrome, but in order to see that successful upgrade, I want you to go out to in the web browser, click on those three dots to the right of the address bar. Here's a little screenshot here. Click on Settings, and then under Privacy and Security, Clear Browsing Data, you'll click under the arrow, and then you'll click Clear Data. So really quick, I'll just show you. It's super easy. It'll take 2 seconds. So for instance, here's my screen. I go to the three dots over here to the right. I scroll down to Settings. It's going to bring up my settings. Then, and down here into Clear Browsing Data, we click on that. And then now we clear data. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to say, if anybody calls, and we did have quite a few calls yesterday, and so this messaging needs to get out to everybody, is if you haven't followed those steps in terms of clearing your browsing history and the cookies, etc., that's the first thing that we're going to say is, did you try that first? So go ahead and make sure that you're doing that if there is any issues with BidBuy. Okay, so also with like we talked about next week or last week, you'll see that we have new job aids posted out for version 15. A couple little notes here. So I posted the IFB, RFP, sole source, small purchases, both small purchases, emergencies, emergency extension, emergency publishing final cost, as well as change order. So a note on the change order job aids is we broke them down into 3 specific different job aids to make it clearer for everyone involved. So we have the non-material change order, we have the material change order contract amendment, as well as the material order or material change order contract change order. So I know that this can be slightly confusing, but once you differentiate the 3 document types, it'll be very clear. The confusion can come in where BidBuy as a system calls something a change order, and that might not necessarily be a procurement code change order. So what we did is we put definitions on the top of each one of those job aids to make it very clear. So for instance, a non-material change order is something, you're changing something in BidBuy. So a non-material change order would be attaching a document, for instance. So it's not a change order per the procurement code, necessitating a public posting, for instance. It's not adding more than $10,000 to the contract. It's also not adding more than 30 days to the end of a contract. So that's where some of those things are going to come into play. A material change order, but a contract amendment is something that's being changed in the contract. So it is an amendment. However, it doesn't necessitate a public posting the way a change order would be. I understand it can be kind of confusing, but we do have definitions on each one of those job aids. And as always, if you have any questions regarding those, reach out to your APO, SPO, as well as I can help out as well. Okay, so and just a reminder here, always use the most up-to-date job aid. So go out and I've added one more version number. So if the small purchase job aid was 20.3, now it's 20.4. And I would like to go out and just kind of show you an example of a few things that we did change. So let me go to, that's the IFB one. So let's go to that small purchase one since we were just talking about it. And another note regarding the job aids is I put in the date that they were published because I think that that's good information. Actually, let me go to the one so you can see the changes. It's a good information to have is, even though we know that we always want to use that version number, it's helpful to know when that was published. So, for instance, it was set up as entitled, published on March 9th. So here's an example of some of the changes that we made. Let me go from a simple markup to all markup. So you can see all the red lines that makes it so much fun. Okay, so, or in this case, blue. So for instance, in version, a lot of the changes were just to make things clearer, as well as the version to move up to version 15. So for instance, how you create a requisition. We no longer have documents, requisitions, new. We don't have those drop downs, right? We have, you click on the plus sign to the right of the BidBuy logo. That'll be a drop down, and you click requisitions. For instance, here we added we deleted complete fields, include estimated cost, and we put in the actual fields that you would put in. So a lot of these are coming from feedback from you guys, when we're doing that monthly training. So that is very helpful, as well as SPOs, APOs providing some feedback. Hey, we think it would be a little clearer if you could add this. So please keep those coming. I think that makes things very, very clear, and it's very helpful for us to see that. So for instance, when you're adding an item, you're going to put in the quantity, the estimated cost, the unit of measure, and the NIGP code, where the previous job aid just said complete fields. Let's see, what else did we add? So for instance, anything that how we are converting bids, how you access a bid or a purchase order, you're going to see some small changes in there as well. But just as a reminder, we're still creating requisitions, converting to bid, awarding at the bid tab, going to purchase order. So that's just my weekly reminder that our general workflow in BidBuy is exactly the same. Here's a change that we made following a conversation from last week, actually. So we received some feedback on the small purchase process. How long is it supposed to go out on the street? And so, let's see. You only cleared the last hour. Don't we want to clear all the time? Sorry, I just saw that question come up. I'm not exactly sure that means, but maybe we'll follow up again on that. So regarding last week's call about the small purchase process, how long should we do it? On the cookies. Sorry, thank you. Man, you're really quick. You saw that. I ran through that really fast. I don't think it makes a difference. I think once you've gone through and cleared the cookies, I think doing it once is okay because that worked for me. So the question is, so let me get everybody. When I only cleared the cookies, in the drop down you have options to change within the last hour. It defaulted to the last hour, and then the question is, do we want to clear all time? From my experience, I just cleared the hour, and it worked for me. So I think that should be good enough. So going back to our bid opening date on a small purchase, it used to say per agency process. And the reason why we had that is because certain agencies may want it to go out longer. One agency may say, we want to go out to all our small businesses for a week, 7 days. There's no specific process called for in the procurement code, versus an IFB that must be publicly posted for 14 days, right? Or an RFP. So with a small purchase, there's no specific guidance there. Our general process from the CPO's office is we say vendors should have 3 to 5 days minimum to be able to submit their quotes. So we've updated the bid opening date to allow for approvals and generally a minimum 3 to 5 days for vendors to submit quotes. Now, I will say the reason I put generally in there is, small purchase, you have a little more flexibility, right, as a procurement method. So we don't want to be, if an agency wants to say they want it to be out for 7 days, we are okay with that. Okay. Let's see, what else did we add? We added the BEP question. And so just in general, those are some of the things that you're going to see on your job aid. So we changed our job aid. So this is 20.4. One of the other things we added here would be, comptroller offset if it's over $20,000, a few of those different options. Here's an example of where you have it's a different option to go and find your bid to convert to PO and those sorts of things. So that's really going to be the big get here. We're not changing things drastically. Mostly it's just for the version 15 upgrade. Okay. 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 So here's another thing we're going to talk about. So one thing you're going to see in version 15 is at the bid stage. So when you go in and attach a document, confidential is now an option. And so you can only choose one. So you can only click show vendor or confidential, and you can't choose both. So I'm going to go out to our training environment and show you an example. So I went in and just added this document the way you normally would. So everything's going to be exactly the same. You click add file, you go in and add a document. Now, you're going to see that this is new here, confidential. You do have the option to select a document, to make a document confidential at the bid stage in version 15. Now, I will say, you're still going to have an opportunity to click confidential for any document at the purchase order. Okay, so our process isn't going to change, but the agency could potentially say, you know what, I'm going to choose this confidential right at the bid. That way, at the purchase order, you don't have to select it then. The reason why we chose not to put this on the job aid is to keep from being more confusing, because if you aren't selecting show to vendor, so these documents are not show to vendor, at the bid stage, the vendors can't see them anyway. So you do have the option. So here's an example. So if I select show to vendor and confidential, as soon as I select save and continue, maybe it will only show to vendor. It doesn't. You can't mark it confidential and show to vendor. Okay. And so, going back to the job aids, is we aren't specifically calling out that confidential box is there, because I think it can be more confusing, as well as, you're going to have the opportunity at the PO to mark it confidential anyway. So it's just a little option in there. So it's going to be something that we will be training on, but it's not going to keep a document from being, for instance, and we'll make sure that the SPOs know as well, so that, and APOs, that just because something is marked confidential, they won't push it back. Or if it's not marked confidential, I should say. So let me rephrase. If something is not marked confidential, you won't see it pushed back to you, and being disapproved. And the reason why is, even though it's supposed to be marked confidential at the end of this whole process at the PO, you guys are going to have that same option at the PO like you always have. So that process is still going to be exactly the same from your bid to the PO. Now, version 15 gives us the option to mark something confidential. It's just another little change in version 15, but my suggestion would be just to keep your process the way it always has been, because most of us are getting used to and have gotten used to marking things confidential at the PO. So, and I don't know why this isn't. It's going slow on me. Try it. I just want to be able to show you that you can't mark both. You can only mark one. And now I'm out. Sorry about that. So I'll go back to my in progress bid I have in the training environment. Go to my attachments. If I select show to vendor, I select, hey, this is the something. See, it won't allow me to even mark confidential, right? And before I save and continue, I can mark both. But as soon as I actually click save and continue, see how it got rid of the confidential? So you can't, at the bid, you can't make a document show to vendor and confidential, which makes sense, right? Because if you're showing it to vendor, you're showing it to a multitude of vendors. At the PO, you're only when you select show to vendor, you're only showing it to that one vendor. So it is possible to at the PO to mark show vendor and confidential. I hope that's clear. Let's see if we have any other questions here. Under the new version, will attachments we mark confidential in the rec or bid phases again need to be marked as confidential in the PO phase, or will it remember at this time? So if you mark it, so let's take this for example. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my document here. If it's something you know that needs to be marked confidential, at some point, you can mark it confidential at the bid, save and continue, and it will be marked confidential at the PO as well. The only reason that I want to bring up and really talk about the difference between the two at the bid and the PO is essentially you could ignore this confidential piece at the bid because it still has to be approved at the PO anyway, and then it would have to be marked confidential. So at the end of a procurement, our general process is because we end up having a lot more documents towards at the end of the procurement. You know, you guys are going in and marking confidential all the way down on a lot of those documents that need to be marked confidential. So if that's your process, I don't want to confuse anybody. You can keep that exact process. You will still have the opportunity at the PO to mark documents confidential. All this does is it allows you to mark something confidential at the bid, and then it will already be marked confidential at the PO. Okay. All right. Go back to our slides. Okay, so we have a new type code. So an emergency final cost. So in order to publish the final cost of an emergency, and this is only if that original cost was estimated. Okay, so in the past we had two type codes. We had number 40, which was emergency, and we had 45, which was emergency extension. Now, for reporting purposes, we want to be able to have to grab that information and to be able to report on emergency final costs. So this is only if the original cost of the emergency was estimated. If the original cost was an actual cost, then you wouldn't need to go back and publish the emergency final cost. So just to let you know that, once again, follow those job aids, right? Because those are your friends, and now they are completely up to date. So when you go back to publish your emergency final cost, you're cloning the original bid, and you're going back, and it's just going to be posting publicly what the final cost is of that emergency. So this is after the emergency is done. If it was estimated, you're going out to publicly post that, and we're going to use this type code, which is new. So it's going to allow you guys to, and the agencies, and for us to run reports and to get more, just better information from the system. Okay. All right, we have a new form alert. We have a sole source hearing details form, version 20.0, or sorry, 20.1. It's in that same procurement resources library that you have all of our documents, all the templates are there. So the CPOGS site, you go to procurement resources library, you select solicitation and contract templates. This is where the IFB template, RFP template, financial disclosures, all those documents are there. There is a new sole source hearing details form. There's a link here to it as well. And what changed was just it's more updated in terms of the fillable PDF. You can provide a little bit more information in the fillable PDF. Why don't we just go take a look at it real quick? It's thinking. It failed to open in Acrobat. Awesome. Okay, there it is. So the hearing address, I opened up twice, and it's more of I think in the past this was locked down, and now you can actually add more information in the fillable PDF. Okay, so it looks very similar, and not a lot of changes or anything, but it's a little bit more of a fillable PDF there. All right, let me check our questions. Under the old version, okay, so this is going back to marking attachments. Attachments made in the rec and bid phase by the purchaser show up in the PO phase as having been attached by the third level approver. Is that going to still be the case under the new version? You know what? Let me follow up on that. That's a good question. I don't know right off the top of my head. We'll have to do some testing on that and see if that's the case. So, a document being attached by the requester at the rec and bid is showing up in the PO as having been attached by the third level. I'm guessing that it's because it was approved, but you know what? Let me I'll make a note of that, and I'll follow up. Okay, good question. So that new form, and then, all right, so our bid by monthly training is Thursday, March 19th. If you are interested in joining us, you can contact cpogs.training@illinois.gov. And it looks like we have, thank you, Derek, your timing is perfect. Looks like we have 7 available spots for the BidBuy training class at this point. So just email cpogs.training@illinois.gov, and it goes 10 a.m. to 3:30. It's at the CDB Computer Lab at the Stratton Building here in Springfield, and we cover general navigation, releases off of masters, small purchases, and just that general workflow in BidBuy. So whenever we are going through small purchases, for instance, we always keep an eye on and are aware of this would be the same process in BidBuy as it would be for an IFB, RFP. While there will be a bunch of different procurement requirements, right, we're still going to have that general workflow will be the same in BidBuy. Requisition, bid, bid tab, purchase order. So we always keep an eye on all of our procurement methods, even though specifically in the class we're just running through small purchases. All right, so our FAQ segment this week is really the issues with the BidBuy. If you're having any issues with the BidBuy version 15 upgrade, just ask first yourself, did I clear my browsing history and clear the cookies and cache? If you're still having an issue at that point, we advise you to contact stateuser.bidbuy@illinois.gov. Fun fact for March 10th. So 1876, Alexander Graham Bell spoke into his just completed invention, the telephone. So what were the first words spoken into a telephone? Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you. So happy telephone day, everybody. All right, so that's it for today. Do we have any other questions? We also have our March fun fact, so I'm going to leave this up for all of March. March is National Procurement Month. I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but we'll go ahead and talk about that for the rest of this month. If we don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and close the call. If you guys have any questions regarding the version upgrade, I have a little homework to do regarding this question, and I'll let everybody know. But use those new job aids, and good luck, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help. Thank you, everyone.